Hi everyone, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton here with our weekly update here on social media. Thanks for joining us on this busy corruption week. A lot to talk about for those of us concerned about the rule of law and battling corruption here in Washington, D.C. It looks like there's some legal trouble for Messrs. Comey and McCabe. New information on the Comey Memos. They've been released, a lot to talk about there. And of course, Judicial Watch is right in the thick of it with two new lawsuits challenging the withholding and stonewalling of information on the Comey book deal and his collusion possibly with Robert Mueller, the special counsel. So a lot to talk about today. I'll start off with the big news, which is the release of the Comey Memos. Now, these memos, Judicial Watch has long sought through Freedom of Information Act litigation. In fact, the litigation began last year. And the Justice Department and the FBI has been stonewalling the releases of this information for about a year, almost a year or so. And they finally released the documents to Congress after Congress, some intrepid congressmen and some intrepid House members, looking at what Judicial Watch is able to do by pushing hard for documents, have decided to push hard for documents using the powers of the House and the Constitution, which is something we've long called for. And they forced the Justice Department to finally turn over these Comey Memos. And boy, do they make the Mueller look bad, they make the Justice Department look bad, and obviously James Comey. The documents contain classified information. The documents contain not one iota of information that Donald Trump did anything wrong or colluded with the Russians or anything of that nature. But they do make it look like the FBI director at the time was out to get Donald Trump, namely James Comey. And secondly, it makes it look like the Mueller operation had no reason for being because there's no evidence of any crimes requiring the appointment of a special counsel in these documents. Now, go back to last year. James Comey was fired by President Trump, rightly so, because I think President Trump didn't trust him. And retaliation, and as part of a vendetta against him, James Comey leaked his memos through a friend, Professor Richmond, who is a friend now / a lawyer, which is convenient, which was then leaked to the New York Times. And it was that publication of material in the New York Times from these memos that led to the appointment and the pressure for the appointment of a special counsel. So Comey said boo, and Rosenstein appointed a special counsel, the Deputy Attorney General, because Jeff Sessions had wrongly recused himself. Now, when you read the memos, and they're available online, go ahead and read them. And you're not going to see anything in there requiring the appointment of a special counsel or crimes by the president. James Comey has been out there on his book tour. He obviously hates President Trump. He sounds, as I said on TV earlier this week, he sounds like he could be running the DNC. It's just surprising that someone so political was in a position as FBI director. I guess it's not surprising given it was the Obama administration, but he obviously has disdain for the President of the United States, and it explains why, in part, his FBI was used to target him improperly, it looks like, last year and into the beginning of his administration. Arguably, it's still going on thanks to the somnolescent leadership over at the FBI. So when you look at these documents, you'll see that President Trump was upset about this DNC Clinton dossier that alleged some untoward activity with prostitutes in Russia. And Comey makes a big deal that the president was upset about that. What rational person wouldn't be upset about something like that, especially if it wasn't true? Comey also makes a big deal about the president asking for his loyalty after Comey said that he should stay on his job. And the president said, well, I want to be sure you're loyal. There's nothing inappropriate about that. And this James Comey had a series of meetings with the president, allegedly, and then wrote these documents after the fact to paper the record. I don't know if these memos are trustworthy, frankly. I really don't know if they're trustworthy. But there's really a remarkable section of one of the memos that I want to call attention to. Let me get all my stuff together here. He talks about the president being able to fire him. And he's trying to convince him to keep him in his job. And he says, I added that I was, quote, reliable in one way, but not in the way political people sometimes use the term. I explained that he could count on me to always tell the truth. I would hope so. I said I don't do sneaky things. I don't leak. I don't do weasel moves. Only James Comey, the arrogance, could supposedly contemporaneously write a memo saying he can be trusted, he can't do sneaky things, he doesn't leak, I don't do weasel moves. He documents it in a weasel memo he wrote after the meeting. It is rare that you see such dishonesty and misconduct documented as obliviously as Mr. Comey has in these memos. And it's pretty clear the memos have been mischaracterized, because when you look at them, no big deal, but the way they've been described by Mr. Comey with all the drama and the way that they were described to the New York Times, you would have thought the president was trying to bring down the republic as opposed to having regular conversations with the FBI director. And I tell you, I am upset the Justice Department withheld these documents. As I said, they withheld them from Judicial Watch. They told them we couldn't have them. We couldn't have had them. We could not have them because Mueller was using them. Some of them had classified information in them. And any leaks by Comey, because we were pointing out, well, if the New York Times got the records, why can't we? Any leaks by Comey were unauthorized and compared to WikiLeaks. They said this last year. And now the news today is the Inspector General of the United States is investigating Mr. Comey over the mishandling of these classified records, because at least two of the memos, which are classified, you can see the black marks indicating classification. They're also labeled classified. Were shared with his friend, this Professor Richmond, who leaked material to the New York Times. I don't know if he leaked classified information, but I can tell you, you can't take classified information out of secure facilities, and you can't share it with people who aren't approved to see it. And you can't take government information generally out of facilities that the government, if they're government documents, you just can't take them and share them. So there are multiple issues with James Comey. So the irony is now that James Comey is being investigated by the Inspector General, and recall, the prosecutors are waiting for referrals from the Inspector General. Because Lord forbid the Justice Department actually proceeded quickly against this obvious misconduct. They have to have the IG give them wiggle room to do it. And James Comey is now in the same boat as Hillary Clinton legally, who also mishandled classified information. So when you hear James Comey explain why it is he didn't think Hillary Clinton did break the law, that's James Comey presenting a defense case for himself in a just world. So I don't know what this IG is going to find, whether he actually did anything wrong with the mishandling of this classified information, but the evidence is right here. We know he took these documents. He's described taking the documents and leaking them. We now know some of them were classified. Those are all crimes. And James Comey has pretended they're not crimes. And you got to wonder, was he exonerating Hillary Clinton because he was doing some of the same thing Hillary Clinton was doing? You got to wonder, given what we found in these documents. And there was a lot of concern about supposedly what the president said about General Flynn, asking him to say he was a good, telling he's a good guy, he hopes he could let it go. Nothing inappropriate about that. Even James Comey doesn't admit he doesn't think that it's necessarily obstruction of justice. So now James Comey is under potential criminal investigation, at least not initially, but it's an IG investigation, could lead to criminal charges. How do I know it could lead to criminal charges? Because the IG also this week referred to prosecutors in the Justice Department, Andrew McCabe, for potential criminal charges over his lies to FBI investigators in the IG probe into his leaks about the Clinton issue. So is it all coming to a head? I don't know. But these are incrementally positive steps for the rule of law and justice. Now, Andrew McCabe and James Comey could both be facing criminal charges for their misconduct at the FBI and shortly thereafter. Comey specifically over his misconduct targeting the President of the United States. Isn't that ironic? And for all of this, there's still no evidence President Trump committed any crimes warranting a special counsel investigation. No evidence at all. And I tell you, the Justice Department, run by the Attorney General Sessions and Mr. Rosenstein, who made the decision to withhold these documents? There was no reason to withhold these documents. You know why they withheld them? Because they showed that the appointment of the special counsel was a joke. There was no basis, zero good faith basis to appoint a special counsel to target President Trump. These are the memos that resulted in the special counsel. And you'll read them and you're going to say, where are the crimes? Where are the crimes? And this is why Judicial Watch was facing the stonewall from the Justice Department. This is why Congress has been facing the stonewall from the Justice Department. This Justice Department and this FBI continue to stonewall the release of information. They stall on everything. I joke, we got to sue the Justice Department for the time of day. And along those lines, we've sued just recently, well, not recently, this week, 2 new lawsuits over the gamesmanship with James Comey. Now, of course, you know, if you go, and I've said this before because we have a prior lawsuit on this, if you're a public official like James Comey working for the FBI, you're supposed to submit manuscripts for pre-publication review. And when you make those manuscripts available, the government can tell you can't publish this because there's classified information or these documents that you aren't allowed to have access to or publicize. And we want to know how that happened with James Comey, because evidently these memos, which he wasn't allowed to have, were used as the basis for this book. And we had significant experience with this process, and we know what it's like, and we know what people have gone through previously, especially those that the FBI or Justice Department or the particular agency that has jurisdiction doesn't like. But James Comey, it looks like, got a special deal. So now we have 2 lawsuits asking for documents about this process and getting this book approved. Was Comey given a free pass to publish anything he wanted, despite the rules and regulations that would have restricted anyone else in the FBI from doing so? That's the question we have. And secondly, how were these memos handled with respect to Robert Mueller? Because Comey says he turned them over to Mueller. I want to know how that went on. Were they improperly funneled to Mueller? Was there collusion improperly between Mueller and James Comey? We've asked for documents, and you know what they've given us? You know what the answer was? They gave us a GLOMAR response. Go up and look up GLOMAR. GLOMAR is a response that means that they can't confirm or deny it, which is an extraordinarily interesting position to take about a request for information about whether or not James Comey and Mueller were collaborating improperly. This is the request we had. All records of communications between former FBI Director James Comey and Special Counsel Robert Mueller, or members of Special Counsel Mueller's investigative committee, relating to the return of memoranda of conversations, memoranda to the file or notes regarding the same generated by Comey following conversations with government officials during his tenure as FBI Director. In other words, we're asking for the Comey memos and how he communicated the information in them to Mr. Mueller. And the FBI, as I said they can't confirm or deny. And we asked this back in August of last year. August of last year, folks. And so they've been stonewalling on the book documents. They've been stonewalling on the Comey memos themselves. Thankfully, Congress got some of them out. We don't know if these are all the memos. Congress can't be assured these are all the memos. There's no way Congress can be assured these are all the memos. They're stonewalling us on the Strzok Page text. They're stonewalling us on the McCabe text. I told you a few weeks ago the FBI found 16,000 plus pages of documents of Director Comey's, the former FBI Director Comey. And they told us they needed over 3 years to turn them over. 3 years. So we, since then, have figured out a way to cut back the number of documents we want to see first. We want to see them all, obviously, but there are some that may be more important in the public interest than others. So we've cut it back. We said, just figure out how to get these 8,000 documents. And the response is, you'll get those if you want 8,000. It will take us 16 months to process and turn them over to you. 16 months to review 8,000 pages of documents that, frankly speaking, can be reviewed in a few weeks. Well, this is today's FBI that doesn't want to provide any information about any corruption the FBI is involved in, let alone James Comey's at the center of the storm here. And I want to talk a little bit more about this dossier too, because Comey has made a big deal about this meeting that took place where he shared the contents, actually only a portion of the contents of the Clinton campaign DNC-funded dossier. He shared that with President Trump in an ambush meeting. A meeting that was orchestrated in President Obama's Oval Office with the top national security officials at the Justice Department, in his administration. Comey was there, President Obama was there, I think Rice was there, Brennan was there, Clapper was there. And in these memos, he tells Trump, I need to tell you about this prostitute thing because it looks like CNN may have the records and they're looking for a news hook. And guess what the news hook turned out to be that resulted in the publication of these outrageous allegations against President Trump? Comey's briefing of the president, of Mr. Trump. I don't know if he was president-elect at the time. So someone leaked it. Probably someone who was in that Oval Office meeting. Now Clapper, who works for CNN, according to the House Intelligence Committee, has given inconsistent testimony about his communications with CNN. I don't know if that means he's the leaker, but there needs to be an investigation into the leaking here. I mean, this whole dossier that Trump was confronted with by Comey, remember, Comey set up the meeting in a way that only he and Trump were in the room. And then he complains later about meetings that Trump wanted privately with him, even though he set up the first meeting to be private. Unbelievable. What a scandal is going on. What a scandal this is. It's one thing for it to happen during the Obama administration and then be cleaned up, but it hasn't been cleaned up. The deep state, as I said, the frozen in place leadership at DOJ and FBI are allowing it to continue. And it leads to more victims. You know, Sean Hannity. The media hates Sean Hannity. The establishment media hates Sean Hannity because he's an effective messenger against the swamp. So it turns out Hannity had spoken to Michael Cohen, the lawyer of President Trump, whose offices were raided as a result of a Mueller referral to the Justice Department. So outrageous all around. So the judge in that case, Judge Kimballwood, who is a Clinton appointee, he said to Cohen, he says, you know, look, if you want to protect, and to President Trump's lawyers, if you want to have this information protected as an attorney-client privilege, I need to know who your clients are, which is fine. But there's no legal basis, there is no legal basis in my view, or ethical basis to require the identities of those clients in a public forum. But that's exactly what happened to Sean Hannity, because Sean Hannity supposedly has talked to Cohen now and again about legal matters, and he was listed as a potential client. And his name was disclosed and dragged through the mud as a result. And there was no reason to disclose his name. Look, I'm not a lawyer, But my understanding is if you communicate with a lawyer about legal issues, whether or not you end up hiring them, the mere fact that the consultation or the communication is confidential. It doesn't mean it's subject to ultimate secrecy, but it's not going to be necessarily publicized. And that's what should have happened. That's what should have happened with Sean Hannity's name. If the judge needed the name to ascertain the nature of attorney-client privileges, then she should have taken the name in confidence, under seal, in camera, all the legal words for that. But this Justice Department didn't want that. This judge didn't want that. Supposedly lawyers for the New York Times, or a lawyer for the New York Times and CNN chimed in that they didn't want that. So Sean Hannity's rights were blown up in this effort to get Donald Trump. Again, it started with a Mueller referral. Rod Rosenstein, afraid to say no to Mueller, authorized this outrageous raid on the president's lawyers. And Sean Hannity gets blown up. Now, he's a well-known public figure, doing well for himself, so people don't care about his rights. You know, no one's above the law, but no one's beneath the protection of the law either. And the president and Sean Hannity and other people you like or may not like in the public domain deserve all the protections of the law. And just because you don't like them politically, liberal media, doesn't mean you can drag their right. Their rights should be dragged through the mud and upended. So, you know, I noticed one of these left-wing groups was making a list of, quote, right-wing figures who were supporting Sean Hannity. I was proud to be on that list. That's not because we go on his show, on Fox and radio and all that. It's because I see something wrong was done. And we call it as we see it here at Judicial Watch. So there's a lot going on. So it's been a busy week. We've got this Comey book out there, again, Fruit of the Poison Tree. The Mueller investigation out there, Fruit of the Poison Tree. Judicial Watch lawsuits to get information about what's going on. IG referrals about the leaks. IG investigations of Comey. Outrageous conduct by the Justice Department and the Mueller operation. So we had some progress in terms of the rule of law, but some setbacks this week. And you can trust Judicial Watch to be standing again in the gap on behalf of the rule of law. And again, it doesn't matter if it's a popular position or not. We're going to hold the Mueller operation accountable. We're going to hold the Justice Department accountable. We're going to hold the FBI accountable. And the judiciary where appropriate as well. So a lot going on. We'll be giving you some more information about Hillary Clinton next week. Stay tuned for that. And also next week, I want to announce a special panel on Tuesday. I don't know what the date is. What is Tuesday's date? The 24th? On Tuesday, April 24th, around the middle of the day, noon. Matt, my colleague here, is giving me the signal. On the deep state. So we've got a great panel on that. I think Jim Jordan is joining us. Vince Colonnese is joining us. I'll be hosting it. Mike Bekesha, one of our attorneys, is joining us. Who's our other guest? Who?
Tony Shaffer.
Oh, and Tony Shaffer. You've seen him on Fox News, great national security expert who's been battling in deep state his whole professional life. So a lot to talk about in terms of a deep state update next week for sure. So be sure to tune in next Tuesday and have a great weekend in the meantime.